What are you waiting for? It's so risky.
She had to prove there that she was one of them, isn't it? Now she lost basically her protector, and now she has to team up with the group and prove that she is as pissed off, as angry as they all are, and that basically she will be with the group now that Martin is not available anymore. So she continues to fulfill what she set out as her ultimate goal, to do whatever is necessary to survive.
Throw it out! Then I'll pull you up!
Yeah, so this sets up for the next scene, of course, where Martin has to come out first. And so if he comes out first, then other things happen. So he doesn't free Stephen. He promises to do it, but he doesn't do it. Now the cardinal is realizing that he has been following a man and not been following God, and he is punishing himself. Ultimately, of course, the statue will kill him. I mean, in a kind of metaphorical way, it's God that punishes him for having followed the wrong track.
I have to choose.
Take both, you silly bitch.
Yes. Come on.
And basically, thunder starts and lightning, and we now go step by step into the apocalypse that is will take most of these people in. They will all, not all, but most of them will be dead before the movie ends.
He's got to do. We're being punished because we are whores.
Shut up with your whores and punishments.
That was a real one. The anger of Marina was really because somehow Kitty Courbois, the Dutch actress who did that, basically was aiming, or by purpose, because of all the tensions inside the group. It's quite possible that she hit her by purpose, but in principle, of course, she was not supposed to hit her at all. I mean, she was supposed to slap her, but do as if.
Wait a while. She can't last much longer.
Let's get out.
And here we see Kars basically with Celine, and that's the moment where he gets her. That's the moment where Celine is all for him, but of course it's the moment of her death. If there is anywhere in the movie something of loyalty that might be between Kars and Celine, at least from the side of Kars, and at the same time, the real whatever love is possible in this context of this kind of medieval life, and the only two people that are really caring about each other are the two homosexual men that basically stay with each other till the very end and will never abandon each other. So within all the misery, there is still some loyalty left. And as everybody switches loyalty and basically has no respect for loyalty, has no respect for partnership, has no respect for even love if necessary, there are two people that are outside that kind of callous framework that the movie sets up. He had to practice a lot, Tom Burleson, to basically to get it in, because it was a difficult. It's real. He throws it himself, and it really hits the thing. We gave a close-up because it was not so visible, but he really hit it the first time. After practicing for weeks, every day he would take an hour or half an hour to practice throwing this thing because he wanted to be sure that his first throw would be good, and basically it was good. So basically we had only to shoot it once. I'm sure they asked him to do it a couple of times again, but I don't think he ever got as close as the first time. And this is then nearly the final act, the final part of the movie. They made a deal, but Rutger Martin doesn't keep the deal or doesn't at least postpones it, and then it will never happen anymore, because he hears these horses and realizes that it might be difficult to have Stephen free inside the walls, while outside the walls Arnolfini is going to attack the castle. So, knowing seeing that the gate is left open by Milan Orbeck, he closes the gate and thinks that he can still be the victor. Ultimately, of course, that's not possible. There are too many people, and the people inside are too weak, and it's the end for the group. It's the end of his kingdom.
Bastard, set me free! Trust me! Word of honor, you said!
Then Stephen will try to escape in a different way. It's a little bit nearly too fancy, I think, what we did there. He uses the chain, the metal chain that he has, and wraps it around a tree, hoping that, and of course it happens in the movie, hoping that the lightning will strike the tree and that the electricity will melt down the iron so he can escape. And that happens, of course, too. I have the feeling that we lost there our sense of reality, and of course we lost that a couple of times during the movie to make the story work. And I think we would have been better off if we would have found a somewhat more realistic approach to his escape than what we did now. In the background, you see they're bending back and forward. You see they're bending Marina Saura and the cardinal in front of the statue, basically hoping that God will intervene.
Let's go.
And it's not too late. There is no fight anymore between the three of them because everything is lost anyhow, and Arnolfini is outside, so they decide to forget about the past and basically join forces to resist the enemy. So you see here him doing the chain thing, and then waiting till the lightning hits the tower, hits the tree, and so he can escape. From now on, the story really is more like how is Arnolfini or how is Stephen going to win, how are they the other ones going to die. So there is really, from a story point of view, it's all the same. Martin realizes, of course, that when he realizes that it's really over in the next couple of minutes, then he decides to kill Agnes because he doesn't want her to fall in the hands of Stephen.
He is alive and
Even he fails in that, but that's the only story point we have. So the rest of the story is kind of predictable, nearly, in the way that you know that, or I think you know that Stephen and Agnes will survive, and hopefully the audience thinks that Martin is going to be punished, or perhaps they like him to survive. For me, the movie was Flesh and Blood was coming at what I call a difficult time in my life, because I had been flirting with the American film industry. There had been many requests to come over to the United States, which I had not followed, especially after Soldier of Orange and The Fourth Man. I had been introduced to studios. I had been talking to a lot of studios, but I could not make up my mind to really leave Holland or leave Europe and to become really and really continue my life in the United States. So what I tried to do is I thought it was an American movie, or let's say a bigger movie, because all the other movies I had made were done before between $1 and $2 million, and it was about 6.5. So this was a really big movie, although it's of course nothing now. That shot was taken out by the MPA, the close-up. It's a puppet, but so I felt that it was, I could not make up my mind really to leave Holland. I was perhaps afraid to go to another culture, to go to the United States, to express myself completely in English. And as you know, this movie was the first time that I tried to make a movie in English. I was not aware of the fact that many actors in the movie were talking all with different accents, and was not as bad as my accent at the moment, but they were still, let's say, they were coached well, but you can still hear Australian accents, you can English accent, American accent, Spanish accents, Dutch accents, and they're all a bit different, and they are all kind of distracting a little bit. I think for an American audience who is normally not so keen in hearing a movie with too many accents. So it was difficult to control the language, first of all. And it was only when the movie somehow didn't exactly do what I hoped it to do, and that I just realized after a couple of months after the release of the movie. I'll interrupt you for a moment, because this is really where you can see that Mila and Orbik are dedicated to each other, and that now that he dies, his friend decides to die too. Anyhow, so I realized that I had to go to the United States if I wanted what you would call a more international career, and that I had to confront the American public, the American culture, the American language, and so ultimately, mostly I think because my wife insisted that I should do so, I was probably on my own, I would have been too afraid to do it. I decided in '85 to come to the United States, based on the fact that Orion had the same company that did this movie. Orion still existed at that time. Since then it has, of course, the whole library has been bought by MGM. That's why you see the MGM and the Orion logo at the beginning of the movie. That I felt that I had to make that transition, and on the invitation of Orion to make RoboCop, I decided to make this kind of step to the United States. And since then, of course, I have been making my movies here. I mean, the enormous amount of talent and expertise is staggering, of course, if you compare that to the lack of it in the European filmmaking. Of course, there is talent there, but there is so much diversity here, also ethnic diversity, which makes it so much more interesting often than only to work with what you would call then white actors. On top of that, of course, the enormous amount of expertise in all fields, especially, of course, in special effect fields, in action fields, and whatever, is something that we don't have in Europe. So it has been difficult to make the transition, but when I made the transition, it turned out to be not so difficult at all. In fact, Jan de Bont, who had made that transition 10 years earlier, had told me already during this movie, Paul, you know, filmmaking all over the world is the same. And if you work in Holland, in Spain, or in the United States, it's all the same. Only in the United States it's easier because you have more people at your disposition. There are more people that know all the details of whatever little thing you want. There are specialists for everything. So you should make it. But as I said, it took some time to make the decision, about 5-6 years really. And here the Cardinal, of course, is killed by his statue, and appropriate ending perhaps of somebody who betrayed God.